We are the Octagram. I am Marc Charles. We are at GLH for the first time recording our wonderful podcast and radio show. And in the building today, UFC Featherweight, my man, Aalon Cruz. He is secretly in town. I was lucky enough to get him in the building. Here he is, mask on. Welcome to the show, friend.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Great to be back.
Always a pleasure, my man. This might be the dozenth time you've been on the Octagram, TGIF Radio, the MMA talk show. They date back 5 years. You've been on all of them many times.
Different locations each time.
Yeah, man. It's great to have you. I know you're locked down in Vegas right now, keeping things quiet, training with your training partners, gearing up for that fight in March against Uros Medic, the Serbian, who I know there's going to be a tough fight for you. But before we do that, let's talk about the other fight that you're dealing with. Tell me about that mask you've got on. And I know before we got you in here, which was not easy, by the way, getting Aalon Cruz in the building wasn't exactly the easiest.
Yeah, it's never
it was
easy.
Like, it reminded me of, like a girlfriend who blows you off and you're like, oh, dang, now I like her more. Now I like her even more.
Yeah.
But the deal was social distancing, mask on, and that's what we're doing here today. So we keep you safe so that come March, you're ready to roll at UFC 259, another pay-per-view you're featured on.
Yes, sir. So, starting with the mask, I guess this is an N95, and I guess there's a difference between a KN95, which I didn't know this. My girlfriend's bosses, one's a ER doctor at Lakeland Hospital, and one's a nurse practitioner at TGH. And this is what he wears. So apparently it allows you to breathe a little easier, and it has a little filter on the front of it. And you've probably seen people walk around with it, but that's what I'm wearing right now. Nothing too crazy.
All right, so you've got the legit N95, not the K N95. What's K stand for?
I have no clue.
The kids table.
Ketamine, I don't know.
Ketamine. Oh, geez. Isn't that filter? You've been smiling since you got here, Aalon Cruz.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Aalon Cruz, what's Vegas doing for you? I know you were bred here in Florida as you cut your teeth with mixed martial arts, training combat sports. What's Vegas doing for you? Because you're there almost temporarily, permanently. Like, you're based there right now. Mm-hmm. So what's different for you out there that you're getting there that's keeping you there like that?
Yeah, well, so the biggest thing, start off, I guess, the whole story as far as why I'm out there. It's not necessarily because I didn't think I had the tools that I needed here to, do what I need to do and win fights. So my girlfriend and her mom lives with us. So she's worried about her mom catching corona. And obviously if I'm trying to get ready for a fight, I need to be training with a bunch of different people, and so she was worried about me bringing it into the house and then getting her mom sick. So she told me basically you can't come home. You need to go somewhere else and train if you're going to get ready for a fight, which obviously I'm not going to sit around and not train and not get ready for a fight. I'm trying to fight. So at the same time, my agent was also like, hey, Florida's kind of popping off with corona. This is when everybody was testing positive for the UFC cards in Florida. And he was like, maybe you should come to Vegas and train here. He's like, the fights are going on right down the street to give you a better chance of getting a fight. I was like, all right. So I went out to Vegas, and I've been out there ever since. I've been out there for the past 4 months. I think July 25th was when I got out there. And I just came back last Saturday, and I'm leaving next Saturday. So that would be the 3rd or the 2nd. So and the training is great out there. I'm living with Coach Casey. He's the owner of 10th Planet Vegas. He's got a little casita in the backyard, so I've been staying in there. And I've been training at Extreme Couture with Eddie Baracco, Eric Nixick, Dennis Davis, as well as at the PI. Use it with Matt Crawley. He's my strength and conditioning coach.
You got to get me the credentials for the PI. I need that food plug.
Yeah, well,
you guys get the best meals on anytime you want, basically, right?
Yeah,
how does that work? You call room service, or you just show up?
Nicole Eli, she's the main nutritionist that I work with. Clint also works. He's also one of the nutritionists there. But I just text her, and really, she's the one helping me cut weight. So I just tell her, whatever you want to schedule for me to eat, I'm gonna eat it. I'm not picky. So it's whatever she puts on the schedule for me. So I get 3 meals a day, maybe a 4th if I need extra carbs. And then they have snacks and drinks that I can take home with me, protein, obviously all the Thorne supplements they have there, which that's all I take. So and the thing is, it's really hard to get into PI right now. Even for us to bring in training partners, usually when you can go to the PI before the whole pandemic, you could bring 4 people with you. Now it's you can't bring anybody. Like unless you like you got the hookup or something like your Valentina and Antonina, they could probably bring in extra people. But other than that, you can't bring in anybody. And we have to get tested weekly. So if you have a negative test, you can't go to the PI for 2 weeks.
Wow. Do you consider yourself like a self-starter? Like because something you just said caught my attention, and you saying, you can't really bring anybody there. So it reminds me of maybe a job where you have to be like a self-starter, self-motivated. You don't. There's not anybody there over your shoulder or saying, "Hey, you need to do this right now." Is that a part of your characteristic, your traits, where you're very much you're there for yourself and you don't need anyone to pinch your ass?
Well, I would say that I'm definitely like that outside of training. Like me being home, it's really hard for me to do stuff like on my own. Like I'm not the type of person that just like likes to get up and go run, or is like, man, I'm gonna go get this circuit workout and do my own thing, some calisthenics and stuff. Like that's not me. As long as I have a class or like a schedule, like, hey, we got class this day, I'll train 3-4 times a day hard, and be there, but like, as far as like me having to do my own stuff on the side, which I know it has to be done and I do it, I don't necessarily like it. But when I go to the PI, I'm not really doing anything group wise. I mean, I'm only there for physical therapy. So there's nothing to get motivated about that. I'm doing strength and conditioning with, it's a one-on-one with the coach, and then picking up my meals, and that's really about it. The only thing I've ever done there with another fighter is Maki Patolo. We do like some bag work like every week, and he's got some really good bag work drills that we do. But other than that, I'm never really doing workouts like solo there.
Fair enough. Now your opponent that comes on March 6th, UFC 259, Uros Medish, another Contender Series graduate like you, but a little bit thinner of a record, if I may say. Maybe I'd say like half the fights that you have. So 6-0. Yeah, 6-0. So in essence, maybe half the experience as a pro that you have. How do you view this matchup for yourself?
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. He's a good striker. I think he's a kickboxing background. Like you said, he's 6-0, and I think I want to say like most of his fights, if not all of them, have finished in like the first round. So I don't think he doesn't have a lot of rounds in. If you look at my record, I do have a lot of decisions. So if you count out the rounds, I have a lot of rounds on my record. And I've never lost a decision. The only time I've lost is when I've gotten finished, unfortunately. But yeah, he's 6'1". I think he's got like an inch on me. I actually met him at the PI before we got matched up. And it was funny because we were in the locker room, and this is when I was trying to fight in like December or November. I think this was probably like September, October. And I was like, hey, when are you trying to fight next? He had just got signed, and he was like, oh, I'm trying to fight like November, December. And I was like, me too. I was like, I'm going up a weight class too. He's like, we might fight. I was like, we might. And then like 2 months later, we ended up getting matched up for March.
Wow, that's incredible.
It was pretty crazy.
I introduced you as a featherweight. Are you guys fighting at lightweight?
This is at lightweight.
Oh, yeah. So it slipped my mind.
Yeah, I'm going up. So
that's right. I remember you telling me all about that, and now this is it. You're going up to 55.
Yeah. So technically, I'm still a featherweight, right? Until I make and hit the scales at 55,
which shouldn't be a problem for you. You've been making 45 for years.
But I've also put on more mass. But
have you?
Still, I mean,
let's see the guns, bud.
Nah. I keep them in their cases.
So tell me about that. You put up more mass. Was that by design?
Yeah.
Were you looking to put some meat on?
Yeah. So the thing is, like, it's not like I need to put on like crazy amounts of weight for 55 because I was a pretty big 45er. But I do know like, at the high end, guys at 55 can walk around between like 195, almost 200 pounds sometimes. So I just wanted to walk around like maybe 30 pounds over, like 185, is a pretty good spot for me. And then, as I start trimming down and getting pretty lean, I should be like in the high 70s, and then that's not too bad. I'm not trying to cut like crazy amounts of weight like I was at 45, but at the same time, I don't want to be small at lightweight.
What is your walk around right now, you'd say, without any weight cut going on?
So like I woke up this morning at 184.4. And by the time I go to bed at night, I'm like 87, 88.
What was your walk around, let's say, a year ago?
Probably like 81, 82.
So it wasn't that far off from where you are now.
Not that much.
So what's different than when you say you put the mass on?
So I've added, I would say like the 81 to 82 when I didn't have a fight coming up at 45, that would be like just me like kind of soft and not like, I'm not like in shape, like fight shape. Right now, like I'm still kind of lean, and I'm still like 184. Like I'm pretty thick right now. So I think the lowest I got to while I was out there was 176, and I was pretty lean at that point. And then that's because I thought I was fighting at some point, but then it didn't happen until March. So then, we kind of dialed back a little bit.
So how do you feel about going in as 55? Do you feel like you'll have some more? We've talked about a lot of this in the past. I'm sure most fight fans are aware that extra 10 pounds of hydration, that extra 10 pounds will protect your brain even more. Just that hydration, the extra water there, not cutting the extra 10. That extra 10 pounds it's
huge.
It's a lot. Imagine getting to the 55 now and then looking down the tunnel and thinking, oh, what if I had to go to 45? It's another 10 pounds. So before we wrap the segment, do you feel like this is going to be a healthier you and a much stronger you? What do you expect out of the 55 compared to 45?
Yeah, I mean, so that's kind of the whole purpose of going up to 55 is for the health reasons, right? Because at 45, it's a really hard cut for me. And my last weight cut was probably like my hardest weight cut I've ever had. But I'm always like you said, for the brain thing, I'm always wondering if certain shots that I took at 45 that kind of rocked me, or not really rocked, but just kind of wobbled you a little bit. I wonder if I wasn't so dehydrated the night before and, fighting at a higher weight class, not being so drained out, if I would just be able to eat that a little better, as well as just not having to make my whole 8-week camp about me getting down in weight, as opposed to, just training for the fight, not worrying about the weight, and just, focusing on the fight 100%.
Great conversation. We're not done. Stick around. We'll be right back. We're back with Aalon Cruz, UFC Featherweight, soon to be lightweight. He'll be making his lightweight debut in the UFC March 6th against Uros Medic, the Serbian 6-0 undefeated mixed martial artist who's also a graduate of the UFC Dana White Contender Series. Aalon, before the break, we talked about the weight cut, and we talked about how you'll be a different fighter at 55, and I'm really looking forward to that. Let's dig our teeth into some UFC stuff, some MMA news, something that I know that you can definitely hold a candle and keep up a conversation with, because you are one of actually not just a UFC professional fighter, but one of the biggest UFC enthusiasts and connoisseurs that I know, which is why I love having you on the show so much. So one of the things that I just noticed this last week was something involved in the COVID relief package, right? And I promise we're not going politics here. Yep. Just give me a second. We'll get there. But in the 400-page, I'm sorry, I digress. In the 5,000-page COVID relief bill that's looking to be passed, one of the line items on it is that illegal streaming will become a 10-year in prison felony.
Oh, wow.
This is coming off the press just 2 days ago.
This is
CNN,
the same thing as the DMCA thing with with Twitch and their music and stuff.
A little different. I think that's different. I think that's the music industry looking for their rights, copyrights, fees and stuff like that. Songwriters, people who are owed money when music is used.
Right.
This is more along the lines of the FBI warning you get at the beginning of a pay-per-view or at the beginning of
send me the link. Send me the link.
Send me the link. Not me, buddy.
Not anymore.
Dana White come after my ass so quick it's not even funny. I'll be in jail in Abu Dhabi or something before I know it. So I'm good on all that. But this is interesting because, first of all, I want to know who it was that slid this into the COVID relief bill, right? Yeah. Of all things, illegal streaming. Something that Dana White and boxing promoters across the world have been dealing with for years. And I have a round number here it's quite interesting. That yearly, just the U.S. economy, not globally, but just the U.S. economy alone, based on illegal streaming, that practice costs the U.S. economy nearly $30 billion a year. It's a lot of money.
Really?
Yes, sir. That's right. Nearly $30 billion a year. Because remember, we're not just talking about UFC. We're not just talking about boxing. We're talking about movies. We're talking about streaming TV shows, people who binge TV shows. A lot of them don't pay for the services. They just binge them on whatever.com. Right. So that's another big piece of the puzzle. It's not just the fight game, but the fight game to us, that's a big part of it. Mm-hmm. Illegal streaming it's just been embedded in the system for so long.
It's kind of a projection though, right? Because they can't really know how much they would actually make if everybody bought the streams. They can only go off of how many people are viewing it versus the money that they're not getting in for that, right?
if I could be devil's advocate, there's probably a way to calculate this, because what they can do is they try to gather all the data they can from all of the illegal streaming sites, and they just add up all the people IPs who were on that site, and they say, well, each of these people should have paid $60 for the pay-per-view, and that's how I think that's the basic way of looking at the math, is you try to gather the data on how many people have stole this, and then that's how much money was lost,
right?
Because they can gather that data. They can see how many IPs have accessed the website. I am in IT. I don't want to say I'm not a techie guy. I actually am in IT for work, but I don't understand it that much as far as how they track. But I can tell you right now that data collectors, people who work on this, they can tell you, because I digress. When Conor and Mayweather had their boxing match, that was probably the first time I seen on social media where people are going crazy because all the streaming sites are just getting shut down.
Yeah.
And what happens is, I think because the streaming sites don't shut it down, the government doesn't shut it down, the UFC or promotion really actually has to invest in that.
Yeah.
They have to get a team of people who are locating and then going through the proper channels to get those things shut down. So that's why sometimes you'll notice people don't have a problem illegally streaming the small fights, because they're not investing in getting those sites shut down. But when you get to those big fights, you'll start to notice that's when people on Twitter will start complaining about the streams and stuff like that, because those promotions are investing in those big shows. Conor and Mayweather, I think there was something along the line of over 3 million, or I forgot the number. I'd have to look it up. It's like over 3 million illegal streams just in the States alone. That number is a little bit round, and I'm not positive about it. Don't hold me to it, but it is something along those lines, where just in the States alone. Now you look at a UFC pay-per-view, they'll salivate over a 500,000 buy. If they can get 500,000 buys on a pay-per-view, that is a great night for the UFC.
Right.
That is ultra successful. So imagine losing 3 million views off of a pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's crazy, but I'm okay with this, because as somebody who's in the industry, I'm talking to somebody who is even deeper into the industry than I am into the fight game, I think we can agree that we need people paying for these products.
For sure.
Because it's going to elevate you. In essence, it elevates the business. More money goes into the business. It gives me more opportunity, because now the business has more money. Imagine if illegal streaming didn't exist.
Yeah.
Just imagine if that concept just didn't exist. Imagine how much more money these businesses would be making. How much different is it than walking into a store and putting a pack of gum in your pocket? I mean, is it really?
It's not. Yeah.
It's really not.
It's petty, but
it's petty. You don't have to go to somewhere. That's why people justify it, because you're not walking into a store and taking from the store owner, or it's a weird dynamic.
And I think the big counter, I guess, people that do stream illegally would say would be like, you're not downloading it, right? Because that would be a big thing, is if you're downloading the pay-per-view, now you have the pay-per-view file on your computer, and you can do whatever you want with it and then distribute it, I guess, as opposed to doing it live and then it's gone. But like you said,
they can track your IP.
They can track your
There's no doubt.
Everything. So.
There's no doubt about it. But the best thing to do is, like anything, if you can't afford to do something, you don't do it. If you don't have enough money to go to the shooting range, you're not going to go.
Right.
Are you going to sneak in?
Right.
No. Right? If you don't have money to go to the movies, well, I snuck into the movies when I was younger. Different story. But the point is if you don't have money to do something, you're not doing it. So illegal streaming has a very weird, dark, gray area that people seem to be comfortable in stealing. But at the end of the day, they're probably stealing more. People who do that are stealing more from that than they can even really think about. I like math. Like, if you really think about it, let's say you steal five pay-per-views a year. That's $300 a year. You do that for 10 years. You just stole $3,000 from someone without even flinching.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about, like, I mean, if let's say I have a fight night party at my house and I have 15 other people coming to watch the fight.
Pitch in.
We're only buying one pay-per-view,
exactly.
$60, but 15 other people are going to watch it. So, I mean,
that's legal. That's fair.
That's legal
and fair.
But it's illegal to stream it on your phone or whatever, on your computer. even though you probably could go watch it at somebody's house, but you just didn't feel like it. So I mean, where's the difference at? I mean, as far as like, I could have just gone to my friend's house anyway, but I just felt like not going, so I'm just gonna.
Are you justifying streaming?
I'm not justifying. I'm just throwing it out there.
I follow.
How do you like measure that? Like you could literally have 40 people.
I'll tell you how you measure it. And I'm being a little bit of a smart ass here, but you measure it by watching someone go to jail for 10 years and you say, oh, I better not do that anymore. Because that's what's going to happen. If this gets passed, they're going to flex on someone because they can't pass a bill.
Make an example.
Yeah, you have to. And one of the things one of the reasons I'll stay away, because as a media member, you have a little bit more responsibility, right? It's like if you are a licensed physician, or if you're a licensed realtor, or if you're a licensed a lawyer, you're now more liable to laws. You have more responsibility. You can go to jail or be charged for things that someone else can't because you're now licensed and you understand these things. So obviously being in media doesn't take a license. You can see that by just looking at the UFC media room. None of those guys shouldn't even have a driver's license, let alone license to be in the media. A couple of them are cool, don't get me wrong, but there's more responsibility here. If I expect the UFC to give me credentials, allow me to come into their buildings that they're leasing, allow me to expand my career off of their name,
right?
Then they should expect me to
show them some respect.
Show some respect.
The product.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And look, we've all made mistakes in the past. I'm not going to incriminate myself, but moving forward, I can tell you right now, I'll be as much as I can of a proponent of this, especially if it becomes a law, because some people aren't reading these laws like I am. Most people don't even know about this. Yeah. People who are listening to the show right now or watching the show are probably wondering, what does that have to do with that bill? And hopefully they're looking it up, and that's what I would suggest doing.
Well, I wonder who they're going to drop the hammer on first, because like you said, that is true. They're going to make an example, because back in high school when everybody was downloading music right onto their iPods and everything, one of my friends, she had like 20,000 songs on her iPod, whatever, right? And I mean, that's not like an out crazy number, but she got caught and they charged her like, I want to say it was like $1,000 per song. No, it was more than that. It was like $2,000 or $3,000 per song that she had on her iPod that was illegally downloaded. Now, luckily her family was rich, so like they made it go away.
Not lucky
or
for
they
them,
took care of it.
Damn.
But she, like when we heard about it, it was like, oh man, like it's real. Like they'll come get you, even if you're a kid. That's
crazy. But that's a lot of music to have on. That's what they're looking for, is the big fish, right?
I mean, I've got a lot of songs.
So you hey, I pay for YouTube. I actually pay for YouTube Premium.
I have Apple Music.
So YouTube Premium is the best. I mean, I suggest that if you're going to pay for a music service, get YouTube Premium, because you get the whole YouTube Premium commercial free, and then you get a whole separate app of YouTube Music, which is phenomenal. You asked the question, Aalon, and if you're just joining the broadcast on the radio, in the studio with me right now, UFC Featherweight, soon to be lightweight, Aalon Cruz, looking for his next fight here coming up on March 6th against Uros Medic. How do you say his name?
Uros Medic.
I just wanted to say
UFC
that.
249. It's a pay-per-view, so you better buy it now.
Yeah, you better buy it, cuz.
Otherwise they're going to beat you.
Damn. Buffalo Wild Wings is going to have a spot for me, hopefully. I'm definitely not paid 60 this month or that month. But definitely, that's what I do, right? Me and Marcel, you know my brother Marcel really well.
Yeah.
You guys have trained together and have same wrestling coach, but that's what we've been doing for years. Go to Buffalo Wild Wings. Yeah. We spend about $30 each, and we get a sweet steak dinner with some seafood, and you get the fights.
Yep.
And that's what we've been doing for years.
Can't beat it.
That's what we've been doing for years. I don't remember the last time I sat at home and paid for a pay-per-view, because I think the Mayweather one was the last one Marcel did, and I was out watching it at some establishment. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if you can't afford it, just go to one of those restaurants, and you don't even have to buy food. Just get a Pepsi.
Most of the time.
Yeah, I mean,
most of the time.
Yeah, I get it, but most of them have bars, and
right.
They get it.
You get to get a meal in.
You get it, and hey, look, get a meal. But as I was going to answer your question, you said, who do they go after first? Who do they nail the hammer on first? The streaming sites, the people running the sites. That's who probably would get it first, because they're the ones that are making it available.
But they're usually like foreign companies, right? They're not even American.
So you know who else is a foreign company? I forgot the dude's name, but the guy that runs, what is that audio? Hold on 1 second.
I know a lot of times, like when they try to go after sites or anything like that, they're usually they're not even American. They're like foreign sites that they can't even go after, because I guess they can't like charge them unless they work with like a a foreign, police department or something.
It's the gamer. What's his name? Just give me a second. This guy. I'm just trying to think of the company that he ran. That's a huge company, and it's slipping my mind right now for files. The file uploading site that was
Pirate Bay.
No, but it's very similar.
Napster, because
Jeez, oh Pete, I don't want to waste time thinking about it, but here's what happened. This guy he lived in a big like a huge estate with like armed security all around his place in a foreign country.
Yeah.
But he was the one that ran the site.
Okay.
And they raided his ass and they took him to jail and they made it life very difficult for him.
Really?
So I'm going to remember his name as soon as we cut this break off. But Aalon, we're going to take a quick break. We're about halfway through here. We'll be right back with my man, UFC fighter Aalon Cruz, in the building, in the city for not that long. By the time you call him, he'll be gone.
Yep.
Former UFC champion Anthony Pettis, now signed with PFL, an ESPN mixed martial arts company that, quite frankly, is legit, a very good company. Aalon Cruz, I know you know a little something about Anthony Pettis. What's your relationship to him before we get into this?
It's not really too crazy, but he's been coming around the PI recently, doing his strength and conditioning there, and he's a pretty cool dude. It's interesting to see former champions and just people you've looked up to, I guess, coming up in the ranks in person, and then noticing it's funny because he's fighting at welterweight. But to be honest, I think I'm way bigger than he is. So it's crazy that
he was fighting. A 55er his whole life, and that was his championship reign.
Yeah, and now he's fighting at 170, and it's I feel like
he's going back down though. He said he wants to go after his last fight. He said he wanted to go back down to 155. So I don't know if he's going to do that in the PFL, but when he said that, I think that he had some really good confidence, which I think is a great thing to see. Mm-hmm. And I think he thought, you know what, it's time for me to go back down there where the money, because I think he sees the money there. He can tell that Khabib might be moving aside, and he might think he has another shot at that title. And I think that's why he'd want to go back. Why else would you want to make 155?
Yeah, I mean, he looks good at 170, physically. He looked really good. That's probably one of the best. I was telling my girl, when we were watching, I was like, he looks good, physically, because we've seen him he looked kind of puffy sometimes. He didn't really look like he's grown into a welterweight, physically. How it takes time, because that's why I think it really does take time if you're going to go up in weight class. You can't just all right, I'm just not going to cut the extra 10 pounds and just go up.
You have to recreate your body.
You have to add mass. You have to, and now it looks like he's finally looking like a welterweight, but now he's going back down to 55. And now it's going to be with the PFL instead.
Well, that's interesting. So, as I said, UFC former champion Anthony Pettis signs with PFL. He gave us a lot of great memories. He obviously a great champion that he was, and the Showtime kick that will be highlighted forever.
Oh yeah.
Just like you're flying me on the Contender Series that we'll never forget about. So he's given us a lot, and I think that the PFL has something special here. I don't see. Anthony Pettis is obviously a little bit past his prime, which is okay to say, I think, but he still has something in him.
He's still young.
He's still young. He's 32, I think.
Yeah, 31,
31. So he's very young.
We're the same age.
I can't believe he's that young.
He's been fighting. I think he was in WEC when he was 20 years old.
The former WEC champion.
Yeah.
Former UFC champion. Maybe future PFL champion. I could see. And there he goes. Now he has a chance to make $1 million, which I don't think he ever did in the UFC.
And hold 3 belts. Who else? Other than Eddie. Eddie did it, right? Bellator, UFC, and he was going for the ONE FC champs. But I think he's had 3
He also
belts,
had
though.
WSOF, World Series of Fighting, before they became PFL.
Okay.
So in essence, he had a PFL kind of.
So he's had 3 belts.
Yeah.
And now Anthony has a chance to do it.
Yeah. Eddie Alvarez. That's another guy who I have a lot of respect and admiration for the way he's gone promotion to promotion. Not everybody gives him the respect he deserves. It feels that way sometimes.
He's the underground king.
He's the underground king. He also had a moment with Conor that I don't think people ever forget.
Yeah.
And that Conor seems to really smear people's the public perception of people.
Right. Jose
really
Aldo, 10-year reign.
Oh my
best
God.
Featherweight.
He ruined him. It's so sad.
And then people just think that Aldo's trash after he loses to him. Like, what did you forget?
Aldo's
like,
not trash.
He's
No,
not. He looks great.
I asked Uriah Faber back in the day, like 5 years ago. I was like, "Who's the toughest opponent you've ever had?" Because he's had a lot of opponents, a lot of high level. He said it's not even close. He said Jose Aldo is the most athletic, hardest hitting kicker he's ever been in a cage with, and it's not even close.
Yeah,
and that's Uriah Faber, one of the greatest bantamweights of all time. That only recently is starting to get beat. He never got knocked out back in the day. He never got finished until later in his career. So
he would only lose to the champions.
That's right. That's right.
He's the ultimate gatekeeper.
He is the guy. He's one of those guys. You say, well, who's the best? Who's the UFC fighter that should have been a champion? One of those questions that you hear. You hear people talk about Jacare Souza. You'll hear people talk about Yoel Romero. I think of Uriah Faber.
Donald too.
Donald Cerrone. But I think of Uriah Faber.
Yeah,
think he's definitely right there.
He kind of was though, right? Because the UFC didn't have a featherweight or bantamweight division at the time, so he was the featherweight champion before Jose Aldo took it. And so technically, like to me, like when
wasn't that at bantamweight?
No, it was at 45.
Oh, he was up there.
He was at 45, and then he lost. Then I'm sorry, he lost to Mike Brown. And then Jose Aldo
Mike Brown's
beat
the only guy that ever really
And then
really
Jose Aldo
him.
beat Mike Brown and took the belt from him.
Didn't Brown finish him?
He hit him with the. Remember Uriah tried to do that spinning elbow. He came up, tried to do a spinning elbow. Mike Brown just threw a right hook and put him down, and that was pretty much it. TKO'd him. But I think those guys, like, I think that kind of counts. Like if you like the earlier days, those are UFC championships because they all they did was merge those fighters into the UFC, and just happened that Aldo was the champion at the time, so he became the first inaugural featherweight champion. So people don't even count his defenses as a featherweight in the WEC, but I count those as well. I think he's the GOAT, and he got the belt when he was 22. He got it before John Jones did. John Jones got it when he was 23, but the UFC wanted it to look like John Jones was the youngest champion. It wasn't. It was Jose Aldo.
Technically, right? Because it was WEC.
Yeah, but it's owned by Zuffa. Like
it is. But he didn't build. I'm just being devil's advocate here. He didn't win the belt under the Zuffa banner. He won the belt under a different banner and then got it adopted.
Yeah.
So,
I still think Jose Aldo's the GOAT.
Sure. Well, obviously, 10 years in a row.
I still think he's the youngest champion too.
Who's ever done 10 years? Even Silva and GSP didn't have 10 years of reign like that.
No, they had a lot of defenses.
They had a lot of defenses.
GSP had the most, or was it Anderson?
Anderson did until Demetrius beat it at 11. Right. They were tied at 11, and then Demetrius at 12, I think, before he dipped out. Before we run out of time, while we're skipping around on UFC stuff, yesterday UFC released a poster for the January 23rd pay-per-view UFC 257, Porier versus McGregor 2. So Conor McGregor making his return. I'm sure over the course of the next month, as soon as the holidays pass, we're probably going to get a lot of this shoved down our throats.
Yep.
So what do you think about this matchup? Do you think obviously Dustin's a different fighter, and he's come a long way. And before I toss it to you, I want to just say that for me personally, Dustin Porier is the most... He's the most improved UFC fighter, and I mean that not in a like looking down at or like judgment way. I mean that in the most genuine way I can, where he is the most improved fighter I've ever seen in the UFC as far as starting where he is and being where he is now. He's a different fighter. So how do you see this one going down between Conor McGregor and Dustin Porier?
I'm gonna be that guy, but I think Conor finishes him even faster than the first fight.
The first one was in a few seconds, wasn't it?
I know it was like a minute or two maybe into the first round. I just think Conor is just refocused. It seems like, especially from the Cowboy fight, like, and he, I know he knows that Donald was a slow starter, so he was gonna come out fast, which he did, and it worked out, and he finished him. But I just don't think he can handle. It's just. Conor has that left hand, and he throws it well, and he's a sniper with it, and probably getting all that boxing experience, probably helping out his hands a lot too. And it's funny because I always bet against Dustin, and he's always the underdog. It always seems like in fights, right? Like it always seems like he shouldn't win.
Because he's not talking trash. So he's not creating this perception of, oh, this guy's going to win. He's just being himself. I think that plays into the underdog part a little bit. You know, as where Conor is constantly telling you that I'm better than this guy. So he's embedding it in your head. Dustin's not really doing that very much.
Well, then his fights were always hard. Like, they're grueling fights.
And he's had nothing but tough fights.
Nothing but tough fights. Yeah. And I think when Conor, most of the time when he wins, it's pretty dominant. It's never like it's other than the Diaz fight.
Right.
That was a pretty grueling fight that he won.
His greatest opponent of all time, probably.
Right. But other than that, every fight that he's won has been pretty dominant. Like it was a one-sided fight. So I mean, it's kind of like that's just he's always going to be the favorite. He's always the favorite because he just has that finishing power and he's always dominant when he is winning. But Dustin's the opposite. But I like watching underdogs too. So I don't know. I just think Conor wins again.
I can see it happening like that. I just have to disagree with you that Dustin's going to make it easy for Conor McGregor. I think Dustin's been working towards this for 10 years, you know, since they fought back in 2013, 14. It's a long time.
Ago, yeah.
And I just don't think Dustin Poirier just makes it easy for Conor. I can agree that Conor wins the fight. I don't think it's going to be easy.
That was also at 45 when they fought last time.
That was at 45. That's right. This is at 55, which I think they wanted at 70, but realized that they weren't going to get a title shot if they were to go to 70. That's not going to work out for them in the lightweight.
It does
picture.
Nothing for the ranking.
It does nothing. Speaking of, that's going to be your division now.
Yeah.
So we're talking about people who you probably have your eye on, people who you are more than likely going to fight at some point.
Oh yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that, Aalon Cruz. We've got one more segment. When we get back, hopefully you're still here. Stick around. We're back. Aalon Cruz is in the building, in studio with me right now, the 31-year-old featherweight out of the UFC. On March 6th, he becomes a lightweight when he goes into the octagon against Uros Medic, the 6-0 Serbian. Let's digress just a little bit, Aalon. We haven't had a chance to speak since your last fight with Spike Carlisle. And if it's okay, we want to spend a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
If you could just give me an idea of how you've been able to, bounce back from your first loss in the UFC. And obviously, it wasn't your night that night. He caught you early with the head kick, and he capitalized on it. So after that night, what have you done for yourself? How have you bounced back? Because today, when we met, obviously you have no baggage. I can see that your mind is clear, and that's nothing is bothering you in terms of that. So how did you get to this point?
Yeah. So I think it's more recently, if anything, because. At the PI, they have a sports psych. His name's Micah, and I've been talking with him for the past 4 weeks or so. And he's just been really helping me with focusing on being in the present and not ruminating on things that happened in the past or things that are going to come in the future. The biggest thing is your mind and your body can only be, or your body can only be in one place at one time, right? It can only be in the present. Your body can't be in the past or the future. So having your mind in the present time is the best thing to do for the most part, right? So I really was okay, right after the fight, to be honest. It wasn't I'm always mad after a loss. I'm in tears pretty much every time. It's just because I care so much about, and I try so hard. So when I do lose, it's very emotional. But I get over it. And, the thing is when we were fighting, and I think that's a big part of my weight class change as well. Like I told you, it was probably one of my hardest cuts, and I don't make excuses. I was in great shape. Spike caught me, but I also wonder maybe if I was at 55 and I wasn't so dehydrated when he kicked me in the head, maybe it wouldn't have affected me.
My thoughts exactly. I didn't even have to ask you that.
Yeah, and well, I've had it happen too before. My loss before Spike. I fought Damon in South Carolina. We were in the 4th round, and I was getting loose, and he hit me with a little right hook right here, same spot.
Is that when you got caught with a submission?
Caught submission, and it's funny because people think that I think people assume that maybe my grappling game isn't good because I only
then they don't know you.
My 2 losses or my 3 losses, I've been aside from Spike, I got TKO, but my other 2 losses were rear naked chokes, and it's not like I've been out grappled. It's usually because I got caught, and then I got submitted.
Right.
So That's a good thing for me, though. People think that,
I
we
can
grapple.
I've never grappled with you, but I can attest, man. People talk about your wrestling and your grappling. Like,
I work on it a lot. You
have one of the best wrestling coaches too that are available with Coach Mahmoud. So obviously, that does quite a bit for you.
I love wrestling and grappling. Like,
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say we're so short on time, but we could do this for hours. Sports psychology, we talked about that a lot. So if you could just give me the elevator update, what's new with that since I think it's been almost a year or so since we've had like a in studio. I think you were in studio with me in February or somewhere like that.
We were at Gracie St. Pete. Remember?
I did come to Gracie St. Pete. That's right. I met you there. But that was in the beginning of the year, at least.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, because after March, I don't think I did anything with you after March with lockdown. So since then, what kind of progress do we have with the sports psychology aspect of your career?
Yeah, so pretty much like right after we talked about it at GSP, I was talking with this guy Kaizen Mentality, which he's really good on Instagram. And after the Spike fight, I just kind of just fell off of it. It wasn't like he wasn't helping me or anything. When I lose or something happens, like when I'm not in like fight camp mode or whatever, because the pandemic had kind of like really hit, and that's when we went into lockdown right after my fight. I kind of just forgot about it and just didn't really work on it and figured, I can just, get myself mentally ready and, try to just tough it out and whatnot. But I have noticed it has helped me a ton, working with Mike at the PI, and he's giving me a lot of exercises to do and a lot of things that I can do on my own to help myself out. And we also FaceTime since I've been here 2 times already. I'll FaceTime with him Monday, and then I'll see him in person again when I go back to Vegas. But huge improvements. I just can't wait to get to the next fight and, show, my improvements, and then also just show my skill set that I've already had that people haven't been able to see because my last fight was so short.
Just like this segment, I really hate to cut it off, man. Man, I done messed up now, Aalon. I done messed up, Aalon. Get Aalon, or better known as Aalon Cruz on Twitter and Instagram at Aalon Cruz. It's at AALONCRUZ. Get him, Aalon Cruz on Twitter, Instagram. Ladies and gentlemen, Aalon Cruz in the building. We out of here.